Now, just a couple other points about the Edomites. Later in Israel's history, when the temple is destroyed by the Babylonians, we've been talking about that in our Thursday night Bible study. When the Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem and the temple, Psalm 137, verse 7 tells us the Edomites celebrated Jerusalem's destruction. They cheered it on. Obadiah chapter 1 tells us the Edomites joined forces with Babylon in their attack of Jerusalem and were involved in the plundering of the city. Again, the flesh opposes the things of the Spirit and will fight against the Spirit. There is an enemy within all of us that opposes the things of God. And the hostility between Edom and Israel continued even into the New Testament. In the New Testament times, the Edomites were known as the Idumeans. The name was changed, and they were known as the Idumeans. Herod the Great was an Idumean. He was from Edom. And it's Herod the Great who ruled at the time of the birth of Jesus Christ. And it's Herod the Great who ordered the death of all the males 2 years old and under in Bethlehem in an attempt to kill the one born, the King of the Jews, Jesus Christ. So even into the New Testament, the Edomites are still opposing the Israelites. The Edomite king, the Idumean king, Herod, tries to destroy Israel's king, Jesus Christ. Now, just one final point about Edom as we go through. Again, it's all through the Old Testament. It's into the New Testament with Herod the Great. In the tribulation period. Now, here's where the Lord just turns the story now. In the tribulation period that will come at the end of the age. Remember, the tribulation is the 7-year period at the end of the age when God pours out his wrath on a Christ-rejecting world and rebellious world. During the tribulation period, the Bible tells us that the Jewish people will be persecuted by the Antichrist, and the Jewish people living in Israel, they will flee to the land of Edom for refuge. Isn't that an interesting plot twist? At the end of the age, Israel will find refuge in Esau and among the Edomites. Micah 2:12, if you're taking notes, indicates that the remnant of Israel will be gathered in Bozrah, which is a city in Edom. Bozrah is mentioned in Genesis 36, verse 33. So they're going to flee to Edom and take refuge in Edom during the tribulation period. If you remember in Matthew chapter 24, the Olivet Discourse, Jesus said, "Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." They're going to flee to the mountains of Edom, to Bozrah, for refuge. Now, when Jesus Christ comes back, right? You guys know Jesus is coming back, right? And he's going to come as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, establish his kingdom on the earth. Usually when we think of Jesus returning, we think of the verse where it says that he will stand on the Mount of Olives. And the Mount of Olives will split in two, which is true. He's going to stand on the Mount of Olives one day. But when he returns, the Bible indicates he first goes to Bozrah. Then he goes up to Jerusalem. Jesus will return to the land of Edom first to rescue the remnant of Jews that are seeking and hiding in the land of Edom, and we're told he's going to lead them back to the land of Israel. So the Battle of Armageddon, which is actually a campaign, it's several battles, it actually begins at Bozrah in Edom. If you're taking notes, Isaiah chapter 63, verse 1, it says, speaking of Jesus and his return, "Who is this who comes from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? This one who is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength, I who speak in righteousness, mighty to save." Jesus is coming out of Edom to Israel. Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 3 is another verse. It says, God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. Selah, his glory has covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. God came from Teman. Teman's in Edom. It's mentioned 3 times in Genesis chapter 36. God will come from Teman. He'll come from Edom into Israel. And so we see here's why God spends so much time focused on Edom in chapter 36, because Edom is important in Israel's history, in Israel's past history, but also in Israel's future history. And when God comes back, when Jesus Christ comes back, he will return there first and then go to Israel to establish his kingdom here on the earth.